Hello there. You do get the idea that the Met Police is becoming more systemically anti-Semitic as these London protests continue, don't you? I've got a double whammy for you today. 2 stories, and they will both make those of the silenced majority seethe with rage. Here's the first one. During yesterday's now monotonously regular pro-Palestine march in London, we saw a police officer deciding that publicly carrying a swastika flag is okay in London, unless the context says otherwise. Here's the exchange between the lady that was trying to report it and said police officer.
Would you like to walk with me? Because I can point these people out to you. And again, I was told when I asked that a swastika was not necessarily anti-Semitic or destruction of public order. That doesn't seem right to me.
Okay, so I think the symbol in of itself.
It is.
God,
it is.
Film, please,
Of course
film.
it is. Yes.
Please, for the love of God, film.
It is anti-Semitic.
So, is a swastika?
allowed it.
I'm sorry, I didn't say it wasn't.
Can I just ask the question? I'm just asking a question, right? Can I? If someone is carrying a sign that's a swastika, you said you wouldn't arrest them on the spot. It has to be investigated online.
Yes, it is. In what?
A swastika in and of itself is not
There's
anti-Semitic.
nothing
That's
more
not destruction of public
anti-Semitic
order.
than...
You're aware of the Public Order Act and legislation that we work under?
A swastika is a swastika.
I can have a conversation with you.
I'm happy to, but I'm just confused as to what's confusing about a
There
swastika.
are various facets to the Public Order Act, okay?
Yes.
So in this sphere, we're working under things called Section 5 of the Public Order Act, Section 4A of the Public Order Act. They're some of the primary legislation we're using, right? If you go away and have a look at that, and it's all about if something's likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress, if it is there's written words, or there's spoken words that are abusive.
So, sorry, under what context is a swastika not disrupting
not
public order?
abusive.
Could you just explain under what symbol that's not disrupting public order?
I haven't said anything about it is or it isn't. Everything needs to be taken within context, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a context of it.
But why does the swastika need context? This is my question. Why is a swastika not immediately anti-Semitism? Why does it need context? This is what I'm confused about. This isn't even about Israel.
Hitler is not anti-Semitic too.
In what context is a swastika not anti-Semitic and disruptive to public order? That's just my question.
I don't have an in-depth knowledge of signs and symbols. I know the swastika was used by the Nazi Party during their inception and the period of them being in power in Germany in the 1930s. I am aware of that.
I just can't believe this conversation is actually happening.
So what exactly are you confused about?
What I'm confused is how you don't, in what context a swastika is not anti-Semitic. This is what I want to know. Because again...
I suppose, I don't know how everybody would feel about that song. Now, if you came up to me and you felt harassed, alarmed, distressed about a symbol that someone...
Okay, I'm extremely distressed. I'm very alarmed. I offered to take you to people who have those signs and are still walking around.
What you need to understand is that our police officers throughout the footprint of this event, okay? We're not going to leave here because this is our role and responsibility. But if you walk down the road and you see that person, then there's a police officer.
I did. They told me it was not their job, that I was to talk to you who were stationed here. They told me that it was not their job to arrest people with
I apologise that has happened. I'm here working to the branch commander, and it is not my responsibility, unfortunately, my role, to walk down the road. Now, if you walk down the road and you see somebody, then you can send some other officers with you back.
It's like 15 people.
Sorry?
It's like 15 people. It's not even just swastikas. It's pictures of people with boards.
Now, I can't find any footage of the flag actually being flown, but I have no reason to doubt the lady's claims. Now, the officer did say the police were operating under the Public Order Act Section 4A, and the lady did say she was alarmed and distressed. So this is what the relevant section says. Public Order Act 1986. 4A. Intentional harassment, alarm or distress. 1. A person is guilty of an offence if, with intent to cause a person harassment, alarm or distress, he A. uses threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour or disorderly behaviour, or B. displays any writing, sign or other visible representation which is threatening, abusive or insulting, thereby causing that or another person harassment, alarm or distress. Now note the section talks about it being harassment, alarm or distress. So it would appear in law that any one of those three is sufficient. It also talks about displaying any writing, sign or other visible representation, and I'm sure a swastika fits that description. And also, that writing, sign or other visible representation has to be threatening, abusive or insulting. I would ask, would flying the swastika at a pro-Palestine anti-Israel event seem somewhat threatening, abusive or insulting were you a Jew in the area? And as to the intent, what would the intent be of flying such a flag at such an event? Now, I'm not a qualified lawyer, but as a layman it does look to me like there's a case to answer here. Now, there are defences to this public order offence, but that's mostly about being indoors and out of sight of others. Not quite applicable here, though. So my guess is that had the officer radioed his colleagues out and about near the protest, they might have been able to locate the person and make their own minds up. The person holding it might even have been shouting anti-Semitic slogans at the time. Who now knows? But the officer seemed keener on finishing off his coffee and having a quiet afternoon. He was more intent on her toddling off out of his area of responsibility and bothering another officer, like the one that sent her to him in the first place. Move along now, nothing for me to see here. But just last year, in a similar march in October, this man was stopped by the police and relieved of his small cardboard poster with a small swastika on it. So I have to ask, what has happened in the interim? What new advice is the Met operating under? And I do also have to ask if it's okay for a group of white, shaven-headed football supporters to walk quietly down a road carrying such a flag. What would the context be with no words or slogans? My bet is they would not get 10 yards, not even 10 feet, before Plod was upon them in riot gear, truncheons drawn, tasers firing, and oodles of pepper spray. I mean, look at Tommy Robinson and his out-of-context breakfast. And don't forget the Iranian counter-protester who was hauled to the floor by a group of coppers for holding a placard, a totally illegal placard, saying that Hamas is terrorist. Now, in another incident at yesterday's march, the police arrested someone on suspicion of touting for the support of Hamas, which is an offence under UK law, as Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organisation. But loads of the pro-Palestine mob sat around the van the suspect was placed in, probably, I would think, in the hope that they would force his release. But thank goodness the police stood their ground and got that person involved carted off to a central London police station. But what of those protesters who tried to block the van? Shouldn't they also be arrested for obstructing the police or assisting an offender? It would certainly disincentivise others from doing likewise. The trouble is that if no action is taken, it just emboldens the protesters and makes it more difficult when the police is eventually forced to act. But any action they do take against a certain demographic will be short-lived. And this one will also have you steaming, if you are a true Brit, that is. Because according to polling expert Sir John Curtis, the Labour Party is 99% a shoo-in to form the next government with a massive majority, and Labour MPs are now saying they don't want the Union flag on their leaflets. That's right, they are rejecting our UK flag. Keir Starmer is facing discontent from Labour MPs over the dominant use of the Union flag in election campaign material, amid concern it may alienate ethnic minority voters and others, reports The Guardian. Concerns were raised at recent meetings of the party's Black, Asian and minority ethnic group at Westminster and also by London members of the Parliamentary Labour Party. There is also unhappiness among some activists who are reluctant to handle the material. Now that one boiled my... And when elected, will they be taking the loyal oath? Anyone blindly voting for Labour at the next election needs their head examining. The Union flag is the flag of the United Kingdom, and the overwhelming majority of the UK supports that flag. So it will be interesting which flag they do use on their Labour leaflets. Maybe they'll follow George Galloway and plaster the Palestinian flag all over them, further dividing the nation. Or maybe even the Hamas flag. Because I bet there's a few of them that do support Hamas and the total destruction of Israel. No one will ever convince me that Keir Starmer has totally emptied his swamp of anti-Semites. And I wonder if Labour will be putting out pro-British leaflets in some areas, but anti-British, pro-Palestine literature in others, once again, just like George Galloway did in that recent by-election he won. And this story tells us all we need to know about the total and abject failure of both our open borders immigration system and multiculturalism in this country, doesn't it? How long will it be before a certain demographic is demanding their own UK two-state solution?